Hello, my name's Robert Adams from Papercrafts Limited, and as ever I'm here to show you our range of all occasion dies. Now in this program I'm picking up from shoes, handbags, trellis, ribbon and ribbon cutter, because on show number 3 that we did, basically we ran out of time. There was so much to show you. And I've still got some hints and tips and things I'd like to share, so I'm going to roll that show over, if that's okay, and I'm going to show you the finished cards and demonstrations that we weren't able to do in that one, and also the gallery that referred to in that program, and also a few hints and tips along the way. So I hope you enjoy this one as well. And so just a few more little things that I'd like to share with you that I thought were important enough to do. Okie dokie, so I'm going to start off with this card here, and what I'm going to do with this one is, again, we've got our shoes and handbags on there. It's standard fare, but what's slightly different, and if I tilt that to the camera, you'll see that we've got this window effect with acetate. Now this is something which is used a lot in crafting. It's a lovely technique. It works particularly well with this card because it looks like a shop window. And I just want to give you my take on it. There's 100 different ways of doing it. I want to show you the Robert Adams method of doing it that works for me. But feel free, again, it's just a serving suggestion. Feel free to work however you want to. And we're also going to explore the dies, the word dies. So we're going to do a card similar to this. And again, we'll be using our ribbon on there. Last point to make before I move forward is to say that the image on here can be downloaded from our website, all the W's, papercrafts.co.uk. And in this show, I just want to take a minute to show you the download page and how it works as well. So we're going to include that into this program as well. Righty-ho, so I'm going to make a start, but before I do, I just want to share a handy hint with you. My background has been in design, illustration, and as a lecturer in art and design. And back in the good old days, when we were doing everything by hand before computers, drawing, doing artworks, things used to get a bit messy. Now I want to just share with you a handy hint, because I found that some of the equipment I'm using, bits of glue, bits of tape are sticking to it. And so I just thought it'd be great just to share with you for a moment what we do. And this really is up to you. And loads of disclaimers. What I'm going to do is I'm using lighter fuel. I got this from one of our cheap shops that sells everything for £1. And lo and behold, this was on sale for exactly £1. It's called lighter fuel. You normally use it in cigarette lighters. Now it is flammable. The fumes aren't too heavy, but obviously all advisors are there, like keep it away from pets, children, etc. But what this does do, because it's alcohol based, is dissolve the glues and just lifts up all the dirt and grime off your equipment that can build up there. So this is what we used to use. I used it for years and years in the trade. This was a sort of not trade secret, but what we would use. It is an alcohol base. So if you can find a substitute, even perhaps an alcohol hand wipe would work equally as well. But because I've used this so often, this is what I'm going to stick with. And what I'm going to do is just show you here. I'm going to be using a bone folder in part of this, and it's really got a bit messy over the years and a bit grubby. And because I'm going to be scraping along, I want to work with that. So with this, we just pick up the top and just squirt a little bit on it. Get some kitchen towel and just give a rub. And you'll notice that all the glues, I've got some acrylic paint on there. Now nothing's going to get that off barring a good scrubbing brush. But by just rubbing it now, you can see the dirt's coming off. More importantly, this edge is getting nice and clean as well. So that's good for go. And last but not least, my board here, my cutting mat. Again, a squirt on there and a good rub will just take off all the bits of glue and rubbish that build up. Now I think this is important because as I'm working, I'll show you there on the camera, you can see that I've already cleaned this, and I've thrown the tissue away. I was going to show you, it was so grubby and I thought it looked clean. So this stops all those little bits of glue and dirt coming onto your card, especially if you're working with white card. And just for a second, if I can move this in, I've also cleaned the plates on my machines here. And again, it's amazing how many little bits of paper, tape and dirt and grime comes off it. So that's everything clean. That's my sort of handy cleaning tip for you before we start. And that just keeps everything nice and in order for us. Right, so let's come back to the card. And in this one, I'm out of breath there. That's my exercise for the day. Right, we're going to be exploring our window fold here with acetate. We've got the shoes and the handbags and a ribbon and a little bit of basic mat and layering. So that's the basis for our card here. And that's the one I'd like to show you now. So pop that to one side, get all my bits and pieces out. And you can see I've gone ahead, just to save time, pre-prepare as much as I possibly can for you here. So just to run you through, base card, anything you like. For me, Centura Pearl 300 GSM. Same again, this is the purple from their range, and again a lighter sort of lilac colour. So these are my colour themes that I'm running through with. As ever, I've marked T for top, and as quick as that, matting layer. Just get this layer down and line it up and pop that one down there. And I thought it would be nice to have another layer on there. So again, my tape pen has run out on me. Let's get that one there. A little bit of glue on that. Oh, by the way, another handy hint. I found with these glue guns, they're great. I use them a lot. It's my stock in trade. I tend to do what I call broken lines rather than one straight one. It just makes it go twice as far, basically, and does an equally good job of gluing. So I would recommend that as perhaps a technique for working with them. With this one, again, just mat and layering, no surprises here. Just doing it visually, you can see by not putting it down right away, I've got a little bit of wiggle room on that if it's not quite right. I'm happy with that. And again, I favour, as you probably know by now, a little bit more space at the bottom. Right, so that's my base card done. I can put that to one side. That's what we're going to work on to in a moment. So the rest of the components we've now got here. And if I can just separate those, what I have is the box, which is going to have the window over it from our download off of our website there. And I've printed this again onto Centura Pearl, just to give a little bit of glitz. I don't know if that's picking up on the camera there, you can see it. So as ever, I'm going to use my trusty glue pen. Tape pen, I think they should be called. I'm going to call it a tape pen from now on. There we go. It's my resolution. And there's an up and a down. The lights, you can just make them out probably from there. They're shining, they're facing down. I haven't written a top and a bottom on this one, so I'm hoping it's going to be okay. Now I've just gone and left a little bit from the top and the bottom, so it's really just the sides that I'm worried about here. Just lining up fairly neatly, because that's going to have a border over the top, like so, when the window goes on. Right, we need to decorate that with our boots and shoes. So what I would like to do is show you some I have prepared earlier on to save a little bit of time. And I've used a mixture here of our boots, shoes and handbags. And get all the last little bits out of there. There we go. Now I've used the same colour. I've coordinated with my backing there. I've used that for the handbags. And for the shoes, I've just used a close match, but a purple mirror board, just to give them that sort of shiny look. Now, what we don't want is this to be too samey colour-wise, but I have matched that because I noticed once the acetate goes on, it changes colour anyway. So this will actually look a slightly different from the background colour, but I just like to coordinate where possible. So that's my rationale for choosing my colours here. As ever, this is just my suggestion for you. You've got a universal colour out there to use with whatever you want. Let's have a look and see. Let's just pop a little bit of glue on there. And what I'm going to do now is just go on and just decorate this with my handbags and shoes. No particular order, but I'm just filling the cases and just trying to offset things a little bit. And what we're creating here really is just the effect of, or illusion of, a shop, hopefully, shop window that we're looking into. There we go. So you get the gist of this. So what I'll do now is just go on and put the rest of the elements into here, and then we'll come back and look at the finish window. And then I just want to very quickly reiterate our cutting techniques for this that we saw in the other show, but just to remind you, in case this is the first one you've seen, just a little handy pointer on there. Okie dokie, I'll plough on now, finish this off, and then we'll come back and have a look at it. You can see now I've gone on and I've placed the handbags and the shoes down here. What I need to do is cut another set of shoes, because putting a pair in looks nicer. I've got the handbags down, but I just wanted to show you some techniques which I could use here, just making things a little bit more exciting possibly. When you cut these, you'll notice in the handle there's some lovely bows, tiny little bows and clasps as well. They're easy to get lost if you're not careful. And what I'm going to do now is just match my colour like so, using the darker purple that I've used for the background. Again, it's all about colour coordination. It's those little touches. But I do really like these. I think they look nice. Just the little clasps, just that finishing detail that makes this card look that little bit extra special. There's never, well, let's not leave that one on its own. I'm going to pop a bow, and you can see how tiny and delicate. Testament to our dies, I'd like to think that we can do that. And there's even a little fold line that works, and you can see all the detail as you cut it. It's all in there for the die. And I must stress, all of this technique just works on one cut. You don't need to emboss. It cuts and embosses all at the same time. Okie dokie, there we go. That's looking nice. What I need to do is cut another pair of shoes. You've seen me do this loads of times on the other one, but in case this is your first program, bear with me. I'm just going to quickly set up the machine and just show you a set of shoes and then the handbags as well. So I'm going to cut another set of shoes so I can double them up on the card. This is a set of 6 shoes and boots die, and I'm using my purple Miri board here as well. I'm going to pop that on top. Now I've done loads of cuts before, but can I just share something with you as well that might be quite useful. This is going to look a bit brutal, but what I'd like to say that with the dies, I feel like a second-hand car salesman. Look, I can make it run again. That piece of board, I don't know if that's picking up on the camera, I've really worked into that. What I love about using the dies is that being very green, you can recycle materials very nicely. So if you've got a bit of scrap emery board and you think, oh, that's going to not look very nice, give it a go, you might be surprised. So as ever, pop that on there, Miri board on top, and I'll cut that. Because as it goes through, it kind of squashes and tensions it. So what looks like to be honest, a really used, spent piece of Miri board can cut and look quite lovely. And I'll just move this out the way for the big reveal. So a tap onto there, they're going to come flying out. I'll bring those back in a moment. If it does stay in there, which with more detail some of them do, don't be afraid to get your pokey tool in. But if I can show you here, you can see I really did go into that Miri board quite hard with my pokey tool, but the shoes themselves there look lovely. So again, a handy hint for you, don't throw anything out. As your die goes through, it will cut and almost heal some of the scars, tears and rips on there. It flattens it back out again. So to save time, I'm just going to go on now and pop these shoes onto the card here, double up, and then we'll come back and have a little look at that. Okay, this part of the card is now finished. We've got the handbags and all the shoes in, and I think that's looking absolutely lovely. So I'm going to pop that to one side. Now, I did mention to you about cutting the handbags, and again, we've done this in the first program of this part with our shoes, handbags and ribbon cutter, but because we're into part 2 and you may not have seen that first one, I'd just like to give you another little handy hint with this. A couple of things to do and to talk about really is the handbags have got an incredible amount of detail on them. They'll cut through this machine with my Big Shot no problem at all, but I'm still going to shim it because I want to force the card into all this lovely detailing. The dies will separate. If you're using perhaps a grand caliber, I tend to snap those off and just run them in one long straight line, because otherwise it won't cut so neatly and nicely on that side. You can, while it's still in the die, turn things around as well. But I'm going to quickly talk about shimming. And what shimming is basically we add an extra bit of spacer in, and that gives us more pressure on the die. Now, in the previous show, what I've done is put my card on top there and then put another piece of paper. I used 80 GSM folded twice. But because we've got fine details, it does tend to stick onto the back if you do it that way. So I'm going to try a different technique just to show you this way. And although that works perfectly, the one we looked in the other show, because we've got tiny bows, I noticed as I was sticking it down, the bit of the paper stayed on there because we cut through 2 layers. What I'm going to do this time on this particular machine, because it cuts so well, is reverse it and have the shim underneath the die and then my metallic board on top. Now, if you've got a different cutting machine, you might find that it needs the extra bit on the top, but this cuts pretty well. And the only reason we have to shim this die, and it's really belt and braces, not because of any other thing than the fact that it's so detailed and so small that I want to get all that detailing. And I don't know if you can see on that shimming sheet, that shows to me that it's done its job. And so a little tap to release those. And they'll come bouncing out. And you can see already these beautiful detailing that comes out on that die. Now, I kind of specialise in small dies, and I'm going to use my pokey tool because of the piercing dots on here. It'll probably just need it. There we go, boom, out as easy as that. They tend to grab it. Remember, you'll have all these little bits as well. I'm going to ignore those at the moment because really what I want to focus on is the handbags here. And as you can see, look, when I design these, very often you have this picture in your mind's eye. This is what I wanted, all this beautiful detailing on the bags. Now, if you run it through without shimming it on a good machine, it'll look pretty good, but that's belt and braces. That really forces all the detail into these little areas here. So I share that with you. You only need it on the more detailed dies like this. The shoes are fine. They'll cut and pierce. Just run them through the machine. But the handbags, that's what I would suggest. Okie dokie. Now, I've already put those on the paper, so we can move on from there. The next thing to do, I'll just come back to the card here, and I'm just going to brush all of these bits off because I don't need them, is talk about the card here. We've got our base in. That's going to be our sentiment there. So I want to show you my idea, my interpretation for the window here. Now, you can buy various acetate sheets. I've gone for all that I could find in the shop, to be honest, and it's very, very thin, but it works really well. So I thought, why not show you that technique as well? So what I've got is my basic sheet of acetate, and the trick with this is to not have it too big and allow for it to just, and it's going to be really hard to see on the camera, but hopefully the lights will show it up. As it goes flat, it will be flat. As you push it in, you create the curve. Now, you don't want it too curved, and I found the secret for success was to have about 5 millimeters. Now, I think the easiest way, and bear with me because we're working with transparent materials here, is to show you on some sheets that I've got here. Now, this is one that I have prepared earlier on, but I'm going to talk you through the whole process. So as we can see, that's going to go onto our card there. And what I've done is just measure this. I'll turn it upside down. I've popped it in and I've measured against one side, folded it, then added 5 millimeters and then put another crease in so that when you push it down, and I'll just hold it above the camera, you can see it now, that 5mm will give you that little curve like so. Okie dokie. Now, let me just briefly reiterate how I do that. What I do, my first thing is, now I should have perhaps used colour acetate, but if I can just talk you through very quickly. I'm going to use my cutting mat. This again is a handy hint. They're all laid out in mainly in millimetres and centimetres. I'm just going to line that up there, hold it into position with a bit of tape either side, and then I'm going to put my first crease line in. Now, acetate is incredibly tough, and there's different methods and techniques for doing it. I favour just using the back of my craft knife here and just scoring, and I'm going to make my first thing 10mm. Now, I'm going to be gluing this. Maybe 20 would be a better bet for you. I'm just stuck at 10, so please feel free. 20 will give you more sticking area. In fact, let's do 20. Let's do 20 because that would stick better for you. Now, my original one I've done is only at 10, but I'm pretty sure I can stick it down. Now, once you've creased you can run that down there. Well, this is what I wanted my bone tool for. I'm just going to run that through and get a really sharp crease on it. Okay, you could use your scoring board. That would work equally as well. Now, to get the next line, what I'm going to do is just slot that into there like so. Okay, and then I've got my, just going to come out a little bit. So you can see I've popped that into there. I now need to come out again because that's going to slot through on the next fold. And I want about 5mm. Now I'm just a wee bit under there. So I'm using these white lines as guidelines here. So if I just come in and square it up approximately there, 5mm there or thereabouts will give us a nice curve. And again, I'm using the back of my blade here. I'm not cutting. And while it's down here, I can just pick up on that crease. If you're having trouble with the creasing, don't be afraid, pop your ruler or an edge against there and just run it along, and that will help get that line for you. Again, just rub that down, back with my, it's called a bone folder. We use it for folding paper and creasing. And now I can just come down, I don't have to be that accurate, 2 centimetres, and cut that. And that is my acetate all done nicely for me. I'm using my cutting mat here as a ruler to guide everything that I need. And then if I just come back onto this one, and apologise because it's transparent, but you should be able to see the effect now as I squeeze it. We've got a lovely curve. If I just go from the top, let me do a better camera angle for you there. So that's my standard one there. As I squeeze it, I get that lovely bow. So that's one method that I recommend, but I wouldn't make the bow too tight. About 5mm gives you a nice little edge on that one. Now, another technique is going back to the one I prepared earlier on. I also have this strap that we could stick onto it and add something to it. And I think it will help when the whole thing creases as well. Now, I have 2 of these, and I've marked one as the top and one as the bottom. It really doesn't matter, but let me just show you what I'm going to do before I fold this is just put on my tape pen to glue it. Now, glue and acetate. You do need a good strong glue. I must admit, I do work well with the glue pens. I'm using a permanent one here, and I find that is pretty good, and that I'm sure is going to keep that stuck down without any trouble at all. In fact, I'm going to use it to glue the whole thing as well. So what I'm going to do now is just go on and put this one on the top, and then we'll come back and offer it up to the image that we've prepared here. I just want to show you, though I've glued the bottom one there, just to talk through, because I realise I perhaps leapt ahead in my keenness to cut the acetate. You can see what I've done is just made this tab the absolute length of my acetate. So I'm sticking that down here, and I'm just butting it up to the first edge there, and the same here. So these folds and everything are all the same length as our oversized piece of acetate. I thought I'd just tell you that. And then actually I could glue that as well against the side, and they can just fold over like so, and the same again, whoops, for these ones down here. So just start sticking those on because they need to hold in. And there we go, that's our window ready to offer up now to our card. Right, this is now ready to stick on, and you can, if you wanted to put a greeting on, if I just bring in this card, you could, I would now say that's the stage to stick it down. In fact, put it on before you stick it to the acetate. You can always lay that flat and do it. So for the gluing, everything's going to be upside down, and I'm just going to get a piece of waste card here and just glue the edges. So that's an edge there. I'm using a permanent tape pen here, double-sided. A good strong double-sided adhesive wouldn't be a bad thing, or a very strong wet glue as well. Okay, that's going to go in. Don't do it that way around, it doesn't look as nice. So what I suggest is just come along and just get that into the first edge here. The glue is trying to tack in onto that. I'm pretty well sure. I've made my card just a wee bit smaller, and then hold that down there. Extra glue doesn't matter because we're going to stick that onto the card. And now for perhaps the trickiest bit is to just pull this one along and glue it as well. We want to keep that edge, so I'm going to physically pull that there, physically pull it from that end there, lock it into that ridge, and give it a squeeze there. And hey presto, we have a lovely window card like that with this lovely band top and bottom. And if I just show you the view there, you can see it. So I'm really pleased with that, really happy with it. Again, that's just my serving suggestion for these. I think the bands look nice and they also hold that as well. Okay, so it's really a case now of just a bit of glue onto this. Because I've got the window shape, I've got to be a little bit more careful. But this is only sticking onto the card now. Okay, just check. My young camera assistant just pointed out I was about to make another upside down card, so thank you for that, young Ollie. Lots of glue on the back there. I'd like to have a greeting on here. So what I need to do, without getting my head into shot, is just sort of line it up like this with that in a rough position there. I can use the camera as my guide, and then just pop that down, rest it. I've got a little bit of wiggle room, and now that's ready to go down. The acetate's stronger than it looks, so don't be afraid to push that down to get a bit of pressure on it. Now I've used very, very thin acetate. This is actually photocopying acetate to go through a machine, heat resistant. They do a lovely thick one, and that's something which I'd recommend you perhaps use as well. Okay, last little finishing touches here, if I can just get my craft knife out, is I'd like to put some bows. Now my greetings message I'm going to stick down in just a moment, but I've got from our buttons and bows range here some little bows. If I can just show you. Whoops, get those into camera shot for you. So I'm going to just quickly now go ahead and glue these. I'm just going to place 3 little bows along the top edge there. So those are my little ribbons just placed down there, and I'll just use my standard glue just to pop those on and just squeezing them down from inside the lip there. You can obviously decorate with whatever you want, but I've chosen to pop those on, and we're going to put a ribbon here, and I'm going to quickly cut one and then show you again that process, although we looked at that in the other show. Now I have a greetings message, and I've used our die, and it says to our special friends. You can then chop it to special friend, to my special friend, to our special friends, and all I've done is just chopped the last letter off, the S off of there, to make it fit. And I'm just going to grab one here and again just show you with this sample how I do that. So I just, with my craft knife or a pair of scissors, just snip it off there and then just tidy up that edge a little bit, and it looks like it came out the die ready-made. So that's how we abbreviate the word from friends to friend. So that's ready to go down onto my card, and I'm just going to trim. What I do as well is I get the length right, and then afterwards trim it to the height that I want it, just in case the letters need to move around a little bit. This just gives me a little bit more leeway before I commit sticking it down onto the card, and I'm happy with that. So now all I need to do is put a little bit of glue and stick that on there. But wouldn't it be nice to use some foam pads? I love just raising things up on the card, and I found that even just a couple of millimeters or a millimeter is enough to just make the ordinary look a little bit extraordinary. So the old foam pads here are a crafter's best friend. Little handy hint here, the glue, if you keep these out in the daylight, they dry up. If you keep them in like a Tupperware pot, they'll last for years. But with daylight and just air, the glue does dry up, and you can see I'm fighting with my ones here. So if you have got it, a little Tupperware pot or something will keep these fresh for a lot longer. And I've noticed otherwise they go off quite quickly. There we go. It's not the neatest of jobs. And I'm just going to spin this upside down just so that I can see what I'm doing. So I appreciate this is upside down at the moment, but we'll get the gist of what we're doing. Again, these grab with the glue very quickly, so, and permanently, so I don't want to make sure it's stuck. So I've just rested it on there gently so I can just wiggle it around, straighten it up. Again, I'm just doing this visually, and pop that on there, and that looks absolutely fantastic. So I'm really pleased with the card. It's looking lovely, everything's in position, but I've got one last little thing to do, and that's to put a little ribbon down here, and I've gone for some pink paper here that's pretty much a close match to everything I've got, and it's printed both sides. So I'm going to use my buttons and bows die here to create that with. So standard fare really, die down, paper on the top, board on top of that, and just get rid of that little bow and run it through the machine. Through one way, and I always just come back through the other. All the bits will drop out beautifully for you. I'm just going to pop that all to one side, and then make the bow up as we did in the other show. Same again here. Little bit of glue on the edge, bit on there, bit on there, and just fold it over close to the middle. Hold it for a second, let that glue bond, and do the same again this side. Fold that over, stick it down. There'll be a natural fold, and then pop it upside down and just press it down like so. That helps it glue, but it also gets us back to the proper bow shape that we want here. If I just turn that up, you can see there how it looks. And you'll probably just about make out our embossing lines on there as well. And incidentally, this longer bit that runs underneath, that's the bottom of the bow. And now I've raced ahead, but we need the two little bits that come out as well. So now I just need to glue this and pop it on the card. So a bit on the base there, line it up in the middle. Just going to go slightly higher because I've got the tabs to come in underneath. And on these, a little bit of glue. You don't necessarily have to have them on there if you don't want to. I mean, it looks quite nice like that. And we could make up a double bow, but while I'm here, I'll just show you. So I'm going to just, you can see I haven't stuck anything down permanently yet. I'm just popping a bit of glue top, should do it top and bottom really, shouldn't I? Just lift it in underneath there, getting it roughly into position. At this point you can manhandle it. I'll have those just overlapping slightly, I think. This is what I call my wiggle room. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to slip my finger in underneath here and just squeeze that. So I'm supporting it, so I'm not pushing down onto the acetate. That's fine. A tiny little bit of glue's come out, and I think at this point my kitchen towel will just remove that, and it's done. That's the finished card. And I hope you've got a lot out of this. I'm sorry I take so long to make it, but I'm trying to put so many points in, but I think that looks absolutely fantastic. And of course, this is a serving suggestion. You can change the greetings messages. You can see on the original card here, we were using our happy birthday as vertical, making that a little bit smaller. You've got lots of scope, but overall, I just think the shoes and handbags look absolutely gorgeous. The buttons and bows die looks lovely. You can make these lovely bows, and then you've got the little ones in there and the buttons, and this is where I've used those 3 small little bows already pre-made. Lots of little lovely details in there, and wow, what a lovely card. Okay, and not forgetting, of course, our window and how we made that up with a sheet of acetate. So there were lots of things covered in this particular card. Okay, for this demonstration, what I want to do is come back and explore the ribbon cutter. We used our Trellis ribbon and ribbon cutter in the previous show, but I just wanted to come back and explore this a little bit more if I can, and show you a card like this. I'm using this as a starting point, and how that die works, and also just take a minute, because in that first one I used it to create a scalloped edge on a card. I ran out of time, but I'm going to show you that here as well. So the star of the show is this lovely little ribbon cutter. And for that, I've gone on ahead to make this card, and I'm going to show you this, mine I prepared earlier on. And I've used our all occasion word dies are to brighten your day, which I think is a lovely sentiment, and incidentally was suggested by one of the lovely customers, one of our crafters out there. And many of our dies are by request, and this was one of them. I think that's a rather nice sentiment. So I've gone ahead and stuck that on, and that shows you what it looks like there. And in fact, just while I'm here for a second, let's just run a bit of glue on. I'm going to pop that in position, because the card itself is going to be really fast, but I'm going to come back and work backwards on this one and show you how I got to it. So that's there. I'll stick a large butterfly here, and I used my glue gun on that one, and it's not probably the best of things to do. I was just trying to get a bit faster on that, and I'm just having these sort of flying away as though it's going out in perspective. And my third one, like so, and these could be embellished to however you want them. So I've actually used here our large butterflies with one from our small butterfly set there as well for the top image to brighten your day die. But this is the ribbon. This is what I need to talk to you about, and this is how we do it. So piece of card, and the ribbon cuts just beyond 150 mil, so it's just a wee bit bigger than your standard A5 width, which is 148 mil. That gives you a little bit of wiggle room. So I'm just going to pop it along the top here and then run that through my machine now. But also I'm going to show you another technique as well. So just pop that to there. Now this, you'll notice the first thing I have, if I try and shove all of this in here, it's going the wrong way. It really wants to go that way. So at this point, you do need to make a decision about how big you want your piece of ribbon to be, just roughly. I'm going to chop off here, because the beauty of this is you can make it any size you want. But remember, it's happier going through lengthways like so. Into our machine, without any further ado. Go right to the end. I have a habit of not doing that for some reason. And there we go. I'm going to keep the machine out and just pull that off gently, and you'll see that gives us the lovely scalloped edge there. In with my scissors, actually on with my glasses, in with the scissors, and just chop that off, because this then makes my first cut, which I can use on the card. Second cut is any width that you want it to be, any depth that you want it to be. Just before I do that, if you have a look, you'll notice there's a top. It's less curly along the top. So that's the bit that should be facing outwards. And then the more scalloped edge is the inside, which gives us that lovely cut there. So I now need to obviously turn it over. And this is the beauty. You can make really thin ribbons, you can make wider ones, you can then put them on top of each other. And that's the beauty of it. You can just build up any size, you can mat and layer them. it's a small die that makes an incredible difference, and it's one of those things that it's an unsung hero, I think. Pop that through the machine there. Because it's so thin, it's sometimes hard to tell when you've actually cut, and I found a few times I haven't quite gone far enough. Again, carefully pull off that. I don't want the tape to mark it. Incidentally, if your tape does leave a mark, you can rub it off. If not, get your trusty lighter fuel out. It shouldn't damage the surface because it's alcohol based. It doesn't lift the colour, and will help clean up some of your artwork as well. That's another thing that we used to do. Let me just come back and talk a wee bit about that. You can see now that's my first piece of ribbon, similar to how I've produced here. And as it cuts, it gives you that scalloped edge. And because I've used a textured paper, you'll notice that the other part just flattens it, and that's a lovely bonus to it. So I've got two things. I've got a beautiful cut, textured paper, and then the scalloped edge and the pattern flattened out. So it really does look, you look at that and think, how did they do that? You know, absolutely fantastic. Now you can make this any length. I've just done it that way. Let me grab another piece of paper and show you how we can make it any length. Now I covered this in the first show, but very quickly just to finish off on this as we're talking about the ribbon. Again, you can make it any length, so just stick it down and make your first cut. Run it through the machine like so. I'll just get myself a little bit of leeway on that. Only need one cut for that one, to be honest. It's doing such a grand job. And then to make the next length, all I need to do is just lock it back in to my original cut like so. Might need another little bit of tape there just to hold it into position, and then run it through the cutter again. Remember though that when you cut it, we want to cut into that new part there so that the paper doesn't stretch too far from the other side. Like so. And then there's our length of ribbon there. In fact, I really should have had it probably round the other way, but I could make a lovely thin little strip here with that one. But you can see, and we covered that, you can make it any length as well. Last but not least, I made a card, and I used the similar technique. Remember, that's the top edge. It's rushing a bit there. And on this A5 square, I'll go right to the edge there, drop down a couple of millimeters, and this is 250 GSM card, and I'm going to cut through both bits at once. That means my die is cutting through 500 GSM of card. So what I'm going to do is, as ever, I've got my tape holding it in position, upside down, pop it onto my board, run that through the machine, and you can see I'll go twice, but you can see that's cut on the first bit. So remove that. Now I would suggest you work from the back end, because you can see little bits of tape. I'm cutting through a lot of card there, so make that the back of the card, as it were, so that your front, I'm going to flip that over, you won't see any of the score marks that go in, and then you can just finish that off by just chopping it off. And then same again at the base. I tend to just straighten up rather than try and get another little cut in there. For this end bit, I just pop it in, go like that, and just take that bit out, and I've got a lovely scallop edge onto my card there, and then I'll just work my way around the three sides, and it's an edge die that can create a lovely little effect for you on the cards. For this last demonstration, it's just a very, very quick one. I want to just show you how we can use our ribbon cutter to create a border like so. And this is working out on really 8x8 cards. You can get around with 7 inches, 7.5, but an 8x8 card. I'll just pick this one up here and show you. It's really where it's more comfortable sitting. So it's not really intended necessarily to make the borders like this, but it does work out. And I think 8x8 cards are quite popular. So what I'd like to do is just quickly show you, and it's quite straightforward, how to do this. It's a really just only one real particular way, but I'll just talk through some of the measurements and guide you through. Okay, so obviously this is, if I just put the two cards together for a comparison, might be quite useful. This isn't a true 8x8, and this is just a little bit over 7 inches. So you can see that really that's about as small as you can get it if you want it to go that way. But however you do it, I think you'll agree, it does make for a really lovely border, doesn't it? Right, so I'm going to pop a quick card together, and here I've got my 8x8, and I would just mat and layer that, put a bit of silver mirror board behind, because however you cut this out, you're going to see something behind it, so you can change the colours if you want to. So I'll just pop that to one side because we don't need it just yet. Okay, I've chosen my colour here, and the die itself, the actual cutting length from edge to edge, is approximately 153 millimeters. So what you've got to do is just a wee bit of maths, or you can measure by eye, but what I do is just work out, I just popped it down here, took out my remaining measurement, and then halved it, took away 153 and then halved it to give me my borders, just as a rough rule of thumb where to place it. And what it does is it kind of zigzags, it kind of butts up to one and then comes down and around. Now I think the best thing to say is just mark out approximately and be prepared afterwards just to trim down a little bit to make sure everything's in the right place, because even with the best laid plans, things can move a little bit. As ever, what I would do then is just tape this up, and that just holds it in position for us. I said the next one's just going to pop down there, and that should be right, but it might be a little bit over, but it doesn't matter. We, as I said, trim back in. The other obvious problem that you're going to have is you will need a larger cutter in order to do this. Your standard cutter here, I'm afraid you just can't get it through. So you are going to have to cut it on a larger cutter, and that's the other point to note. That was actually a TV moment when I just looked across to my left and realised that I'd forgotten I would need a bigger cutter. So what I've done is I've gone to my trusty one here, my Grand Caliber, and I'm going to use that. So with my plates now loaded up, I've got my die onto here, base and top plate. I actually cut opposite to the way that it tells you. For no other reason, I like just having the thing on the top, and I find it works perfectly. Now this machine's a little bit slower than my other one, so turn the handle, speed that up a bit, and I'll place that one to one side, and my plates as well, and then we'll just come back and have a quick look at this. And there you go. I'll just take the bits out there. They've all cut. It's just, as usual, this has got a plastic surface. This is a 300 GSM, slightly plastic surface to it. Okay, so that's my first cut, and the next one is obviously going to slide down across there like so. And although I did do my measurements, I'm just going to tap my die, get rid of all the bits and rubbish off of it. There we go, and just now line up this one here. What I'm doing now is just placing the die down next to that, and I'm just visually popping this edge against the cut edge there, because I know there'll be a millimetre or so, and just squaring it up with the edge here, and again a little bit of tape to hold it into position, and then back into my machine. So I'm going to cut that, and as ever I'm going to pop it through this way, because that gives the least amount of strain, and you'll know with the Grand Caliber it likes to cut towards the edge as well. So I'm going to go on and cut this, and then come back and just do the other ones and show you. So I'll just quickly run through this machine and we'll come back and have a look. Just to sort of put that point home, I'm putting this back on my plate, and again I'm coming close to the edge there. I don't want the paper to come over and obviously get ruined, but nice and close so we get a good cutting edge along there, and obviously running along that way. I've cut this part out, and you can see that's butted up nicely with just a tiny little gap there, and that's just comes from placing the die down and just sort of kissing the edge, as it were, there. And I'll do the same again here, and I'm just visually lining it up with the side there as well. I've gone slightly over from where my pencil line is, but that looks squarer than how I'd drawn it, so go with what looks right rather than what's measured accurately. That was something I was taught as a young design assistant, but that's a case in point here, where if I just married my line it wouldn't quite work. So that's okay, because I've just had to come over a little bit. It's parallel, but it just slightly out. So remember, that's only ever going to be a guideline for you. The position of the die will ultimately tell you where it wants to go. So I don't know if you can pick that up there, but you can see I've just got a very, very slight gap at the edge there, and I've lined the top up there. And again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to pop this through the machine and then repeat it, the same process down here as well. So then we'll come back and have a look at the finished card. I've gone on, although I was going to cut it all and just come back and show you, I just thought I'd, if all show you this one, because again, if all goes well, I should be able to line that one up there, and that just lines up down here, if you can see like that. And thankfully it does. That means everything's worked quite well. So it was just to show you that it will, don't worry, I know I've mentioned measurements and that, don't worry, it will kind of work its way out. And I said if you didn't quite measure everything up, just square it up afterwards. Okay, I'm going to cut this one and then we'll see the finished one for sure. So here's my finished cutout, and I think you'll agree, I think it looks really nice. So it's ready now just to have my images pop down there in the middle, and that creates a lovely frame for it. And gluing wise, what I've done is just put a few bits along here and then on the inside there just to hold it in, and that will go down, just matte and layering in this instance, like so. And of course the matte and layered colour will come out and show through. And there we go, it's just ready now to have an image popped in there, anything that you like. I've got a few bits lying around, and take it from there. So it's a nice technique. It's quite straightforward. Don't let me talking about measuring put you off. It's just there as a rough guide. The die was 153 long, so you just take that away and divide it from 2 from the edges. Oh, I hope I'm not getting too mathy for you there. And it just near enough is good enough. Trim it down if it isn't, and you'll see that you're going to go one length, drop it down, length there, then up, and it should all just join up nicely. Mine did, and I'm not the greatest measurer, so I think if I can do it, you'll all be fine. Last but not least, remember you will need to cut with a bigger machine, so sort of a grand caliber, your re-embosser, anything that does the A4 or bigger plates, and then you'll be absolutely fine. Thank you for watching part 2 of our boots and shoes, handbags, trellis ribbon and ribbon cutter dies. We've introduced some words to you as well. We've had To Brighten Your Day and To Our My Special Friend. Introduced, as I said, the bows, the buttons and bows set, and we had a guest appearance of the large butterflies as well, so a lot on here. Also, I wanted to just cover the techniques and the cards that I was unable to show you in the first programme because there was so much in it. It was a lot to see and do. I hope you've enjoyed this. I thought that the cards look lovely. I enjoyed making the window card and just sharing with you my hints and tips for that as well. Anyway, I hope you've enjoyed the programme. Enjoy your crafting. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, for the free downloads, you just simply need to go to our website, which is allthewspapercrafts.co.uk. And that will take you to our page here, and you can see a number of things. Those are the shows we're attending. We've got our tutorials here, I've mentioned those. Our dies, you can have a look at our full range, and then you just need to scroll down, because what we're looking for here is free downloads. So we click onto the free downloads, and that will take you to our sister site, Computer Crafts. Again, lots of things you can download here, but what we're looking for today are our free downloads. You'll see it here, it's written, and just simply click onto it, and that will take you to a whole host of goodies here. And just scroll down looking for what you want, fill your boots, it costs you nothing. So today I would like some shoes. I'm going to add that to my cart. And that goes into my shopping cart here, and then I can hit continue shopping. And we would like 3 buttons and bows backing papers, add to cart. And there we go. Simple as that. You can see what we've got here. Total is 0, and I'm just going to check out with this one here and go checkout, and then just type your details in here and go complete free checkout. When you've done that, a page should normally come up here, little orange type. Click here, click onto that, and it's saying free bonus papers, download PDF, and I'm going to open that with Adobe Acrobat. You will need to do that. Let's just center this up for you, and you can see it acts now like a mini PDF, like one of our CDs. And you've got the details here. And I'm going to go click to download, and then simply click onto the page, print it, do the reverse side, and you've got everything there that you could need. It's as simple as that. So, as I said, just go through. It's worth having a look. There's some lovely things on here, and just pop it into the basket and download it and have fun with that. Okie dokie, so that's our free download button. And I'm using the papers here with the buttons and bows, and with the shoes as well. That's the box which we're going to use there in our shoes and handbags. So I recommend when you get a moment, go to the website and check it out for yourself.